Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is How to Paraphrase in IELTS Without Memorizing.
It's great to be here. And we're tackling a topic that I think genuinely keeps people up at night when they're studying for this exam.
Oh, keeps people up at night is not an exaggeration at all. We've got a huge pile of research in front of us today, and it all comes back to this one single recurring nightmare. For anyone who is even thinking about the IELTS exam, there's this big, scary monster, and its name is paraphrasing.
It absolutely is the monster under the bed. It's the word that echoes in your head when you're trying to sleep.
And you hear it everywhere, don't you? You open a textbook, you watch a video, you talk to a tutor, and it's always the same thing. You have to paraphrase. You must paraphrase to get a high score. But the way students actually go about doing that, well, it often ends up being a complete disaster.
A total disaster. I call it the robotic candidate syndrome.
The robotic candidate. I love that name, even though it sounds a bit scary. Can you paint a picture for us? What does this candidate actually look and sound like?
Well, you have to imagine a student who's just completely terrified of repeating themselves. They have this idea burned into their brain that if they use the word important twice in an essay, they're going to automatically fail.
Right. It's like repetition is the ultimate sin.
Exactly. So what do? They go and memorize these huge long lists of synonyms. They treat a sentence like it's a math problem, where every single variable needs to be replaced with a bigger, more complicated one.
I've totally been there. You're writing something and you think, oh, I can't say people again. That's too simple. So you swap it for, I don't know, individuals. Then you see the word happy and you change it to elated.
And that's just the beginning of the problem, because it gets worse.
Yeah.
You take a perfectly normal phrase like children playing games, and because you're so scared of using simple words, you turn it into something like juveniles engaging in digital interactive entertainment.
Juveniles engaging in digital interactive entertainment.
That sounds like something from a police report in a sci-fi movie, not an essay about kids having fun. You've hit the nail on the head. That's what we call a Frankenstein sentence. You've stitched together all these different parts and, well, it might be technically alive, but it's a monster. It's robotic, it's unnatural, and to an examiner, it just sounds like you swallowed a thesaurus and you're choking on it.
That's such a perfect image, but I really get the impulse behind it. You want to sound smart, you want the examiner to see your writing and think, wow, look at this person's vocabulary. But what you're saying is that this very instinct, the desire to replace every single word, that's actually what's killing your score.
It absolutely demolishes it. It fails because it focuses on vocabulary replacement instead of what really matters, which is meaning transfer. And that's the big distinction we need to make right here at the start of this deep dive.
Okay, meaning transfer. That sounds a lot deeper than just learning synonyms. Let's break that down.
It requires a complete change in how you think about it. The whole philosophy of high-level English, and this is for life, not just for IELTS, is that paraphrasing is about manipulation and flexibility. It is not about memorization. You can't possibly memorize enough words to cover every topic they could throw at you.
So if I'm not supposed to be memorizing lists, what am I supposed to be doing?
You're manipulating the language you already know. Think about it like this. Imagine you're trying to explain something complicated to a friend, maybe how a coffee machine works. You say, the hot water is forced through the ground coffee beans. And your friend just gives you this blank look. They didn't get it. Yeah. What do you do next?
Well, I'm definitely not going to just say the exact same sentence again, but louder. That never works.
Right.
I'd probably change the whole explanation. I'd use an analogy or simplify it. I'd say something like, look, it's just like making tea, but the machine pushes the water through the coffee really fast.
Bingo. That right there is perfect paraphrasing. That natural pivot you make when you just want someone to understand you. That's what the IELTS examiners are dying to see. They don't want to know if you know a $10 word for piston. They want to see if you understand an idea well enough to explain it in a completely different way.
That actually takes a lot of the pressure off. It stops feeling like a vocabulary quiz and starts feeling more like a test of your communication skills.
That's the heart of it. But we have to be clear about why this is so important, why we're spending all this time on it today. A lot of students think this is just about the writing section. They think, okay, I just need to paraphrase the essay question in my introduction so I don't get penalized.
Right. Don't copy the question. That's rule number 1 in every textbook.
And it is a good rule.
Yeah.
But this skill goes so much deeper. Paraphrasing is like, it's the hidden operating system of the entire exam. It's the code that the whole test is written in.
Okay, break that down. How does it apply to something like the listening section? I thought that was just about, hearing the words and writing them down.
If only it were that simple. In listening and in reading, you're dealing with what I call passive paraphrasing. You aren't producing the paraphrase yourself, but you have to be able to recognize it. The questions almost never use the exact same words as the audio or the text. If they did, it wouldn't be a language test. It would just be a game of word search.
That's a really good point. You're trying to match the meaning, not the specific keywords.
Spot on. So if the text says the society collapsed due to a prolonged drought, the question might ask about the reason for the downfall of the ancient civilization. If you're just scanning the text for the word DOWNFAL, you're going to miss it completely. You have to make that connection in your head instantly. That collapsed means downfall.
And then for the writing and speaking parts, that's when we switch to active paraphrasing.
Correct. That's where you're the one who has to create it to avoid repeating yourself. You know, if you're describing a graph and you write, the graph shows this, then the graph shows that. And the graph also shows that. You're basically shouting at the examiner, I have a very small toolbox, I'm stuck.
Okay, so we've established it's critical, and we know that memorizing lists is the trap that creates these robotic candidates. So let's get into the actual mechanics. The material we have outlines 5 core techniques, and what I like about them is they feel like tools, things you can actually use rather than just abstract rules.
They are absolutely tools. Once you learn how to use these 5 levers, you can apply them to any topic, any sentence. You become a mechanic of the language, not just a driver.
Let's start with the first one. Technique number 1. Structural transformation. This sounds a little bit like we're heading back to grammar class.
It is grammar. There's no hiding from that. But I like to think of it as weaponized grammar. Structural transformation is all about changing the physical shape of the sentence while keeping the meaning exactly the same. And it's so often overlooked because students are just obsessed with finding a new word. But this is actually the safest and most effective way to paraphrase.
Why do you say it's safer?
Because you're not gambling on a word's meaning. You're not running the risk of using a synonym that has the wrong connotation or the wrong flavor. You're moving the furniture around in the room. Let's take a look at an example from our notes here.
Okay.
The original sentence is, the government introduced new policies to reduce carbon emissions.
Pretty standard. You'd see something like that in writing task 2.
Right. Now, the robotic student immediately starts panicking, trying to find a synonym for government. Maybe the administration, the state, it gets messy. Then they try to find a synonym for policies, regulations, directives. It's a minefield. But with structural transformation, we just flip it. We say, new policies aimed at reducing carbon emissions were introduced by the government.
I see what you did there. You went from the active voice, the government introduced, to the passive voice, policies were introduced.
That's the main move. And notice, we kept the word government. We kept carbon emissions. We didn't need to find some fancy, obscure synonym for those key terms. We just showed our control of the language by changing the whole structure of the sentence.
You also changed to reduce into aimed at reducing. That's a nice touch.
Could I? That's a more subtle shift, going from an infinitive to a participle phrase. But it sounds incredibly academic, doesn't it?
It really does. It sounds like something from a university textbook or a formal report.
And that's the secret. Academic writing often uses the passive voice because it puts the focus on the action or the result, not on the person doing the action. So by using this technique, you not only paraphrase successfully, but you also make your writing sound more objective and sophisticated.
Okay, I like that. Moving the furniture. That's a great way to think about it. Let's move on to technique number 2, word class conversion. This one sounds like you're doing some kind of magic trick.
It does feel a bit like alchemy, yeah.
Oh!
It's about changing a word's part of speech. So turning a verb into a noun or an adjective into an adverb, this is probably my favorite technique because it's so efficient. It hits 2 birds with 1 stone.
How does it do that?
Because when you change a word's class, the grammar of the sentence has to change around it. It forces you to do a structural transformation automatically. You can't avoid it.
Give me an example so I can get my head around it.
Okay, let's take this sentence. The company succeeded in expanding its market. Pretty simple. Succeeded is a verb. Expanding is a verb form.
Got it.
Now let's do the magic. Let's convert those verbs. Succeeded can become the adjective successful, and expanding can become the noun expansion. So now our phrase is, the company's successful expansion of its market.
Oh, wow. The company's successful expansion. Yeah, that sounds denser, more academic.
It's a process called nominalization, turning actions into nouns. It makes your writing sound much more sophisticated. But look at the ripple effect it had on the grammar. Because we used the noun expansion, we had to add the word of. You can't say expansion its market. You're forced to say expansion of its market.
So just by changing the type of word, I had to change the sentence structure, which means I've paraphrased effectively without even trying to hunt for a synonym.
You've got it. You're still using the core concepts of success and expand, so there's zero risk of changing the meaning. You're just putting the words in a different outfit.
That's a really high-yield strategy. Okay, but now we have to talk about the big one. Technique number 3, strategic synonym substitution. This is what everyone thinks paraphrasing is.
It is, but I want to put a huge emphasis on that first word, strategic.
Why is that word so important? Why not just synonym substitution?
Because of that Frankenstein problem we were talking about, you have to be strategic. There are two main types of words, function words and content words. Function words are the grammatical glue words like the, at, in, because. You almost never need to paraphrase the...
Please don't try to find a synonym for the word the.
You'd be surprised what people try. But the real danger is with technical terms. If the essay is about global warming, you don't need to change it to the planet's thermal increase.
Right.
Just call it global warming. That's what it's called. You should only be looking to swap the content words, the verbs, the adjectives, the abstract nouns, and only when you are 100% sure of the meaning.
We've got a great example here about climate change. The original is, climate change poses a significant threat to global food security.
Okay, a classic IELTS topic. Now the robotic candidate sees food security and immediately panics. I need a synonym. Meal safety. Sustenance protection.
Sustenance protection. That sounds like a Tupperware brand.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. Food security is a fixed technical term. You leave it alone. Same with climate change. So instead, we target the descriptive words.
Okay.
Poses could become presence. Significant could become considerable or major. Threat could become danger or risk.
So a good paraphrase would be something like, climate change presents a considerable danger to global food security.
Perfect. We kept the core technical concepts that anchor the sentence, but we rotated the descriptive language around them. It's strategic.
This brings up a really crucial warning that's in our notes here about the connotation or the flavor of a word.
Ah, yes, the flavor. This is where the thesaurus abuser gets into so much trouble. Synonyms are almost never perfect copies of each other. They have slightly different feelings, different contexts.
The classic example is all the different words for thin.
Right. You have slim, slender, thin, skinny, gaunt. In a basic thesaurus, they're all just listed together. But if you tell someone, you look very slender today, that's a lovely compliment. It implies elegance, grace. If you say, you look skinny, that's borderline criticism and suggests they might be unhealthy. And if you say, you look gaunt, you're basically saying they look like they're dying.
Imagine writing an essay and talking about gaunt supermodels versus slender supermodels. Those are two completely different arguments.
Totally different. One is about a potential health crisis. The other is about high fashion. The context is everything. So the rule is, if you are not 100% sure of the flavor of a word, do not use it. It is always better to repeat a word you know is correct than to use a fancy synonym that's accidentally wrong or offensive.
That is some of the best advice I think we can give. Okay, let's move on. Technique number 4, abstraction and specification. This one feels a little bit more like a logical puzzle.
I like to call this the ladder of abstraction. Imagine a ladder. At the very bottom, you have super specific, concrete things. At the very top, you have broad, abstract categories. Paraphrasing is often just a case of moving up or down that ladder.
Let's use the example from the notes, the one about cars. The original sentence is, cars produce harmful emissions.
Okay, so the word cars is somewhere in the middle of our ladder. If we want to move down the ladder and be more specific, we could say, automobiles emit pollutants like carbon dioxide.
So you swapped cars for automobiles, and you actually named the specific emissions. You zoomed in.
Exactly. We got more detailed. But we can also go up the ladder and be more general or abstract. Cars becomes the broader category of vehicles, and harmful emissions becomes the broader category of air pollution.
So it becomes vehicles contribute to air pollution.
You got it. And this is a lifesaver for avoiding repetition in your essays. If you've already used the word cars a couple of times, you can switch to vehicles or private transport to show variety.
It's also really useful for structuring a paragraph, isn't it? You can start with a general statement and then give a specific example, which is basically moving down the ladder yourself.
That's a very advanced way to think about it, and it's absolutely right. You're paraphrasing your own topic sentence to support it with evidence.
Love that. Okay, final technique. Technique number 5, explanation and definition. This one is described in our notes as the emergency button.
It's the ultimate safety net. It's for that moment when your mind just goes completely blank. You see a word, you know what it means, but you just cannot think of a synonym. You can't think of how to change the grammar. What do?
Panic.
Don't panic. Just define it. Explain what the word means using other words. For example, the experiment yielded unexpected results. Let's say you're stuck on the word unexpected.
Okay, my mind is blank.
So just unpack it. What does unexpected actually mean? It means the results were not what they thought was going to happen.
Right, they were different from the prediction.
So you just write that. The outcomes of the study differed from what the researchers had anticipated. You just wrote out the definition.
And that counts as a paraphrase.
It absolutely counts. It shows a deep understanding of the concept. And this is so useful in the speaking test. If you get stuck on a word, just describe what you mean. It keeps the conversation flowing.
It's like when you can't remember the word for something, even in your own language, you say, can you pass me the thing you use to flip pancakes?
The spatula, yes. That's a form of paraphrasing called circumlocution. And it's a totally natural communication strategy.
So those are the 5 tools: structure, word class, synonyms, abstraction, and definition. But the real magic, as you said, happens when you start putting them together. The notes here call this the multiplier effect.
This is the power move. This is what separates a good paraphrase from a great one. The most natural and effective paraphrasing doesn't just use one of these techniques, it weaves them together seamlessly.
It's like a combo move in a video game.
Let's break down a really top-tier example to see how it works. Here's the original sentence. Governments should invest more money in public transportation to reduce traffic congestion.
Okay, a very standard IELTS essay topic. We've all written about this 100 times.
Right. Now listen carefully to this paraphrased version. Listen to how it sounds. Increased government funding for public transit systems could help alleviate traffic congestion in urban areas.
Wow, okay, that sounds completely different, but the meaning is identical. And it sounds so much more natural and academic. Let's dissect that. What exactly happened there?
Okay, let's break it down. First, we used synonyms. Money became funding, and public transportation became public transit systems.
Right, so that's technique 3.
Yep. Second, we used word class conversion. The verb invest became the noun funding.
Technique 2.
Third, we changed the structure. The original sentence had, government should invest. Our new sentence starts with the noun phrase, increased government funding. That's technique 1.
And you also softened it a bit. You went from should invest to could help alleviate.
That's a more advanced move, yeah. And finally, we use specification. We added the phrase in urban areas because that's usually where traffic congestion is a problem. That's technique 4.
So that one sentence used 4 out of the 5 techniques all at once.
And that's why it sounds so good. It doesn't sound forced. If you only change one thing, like government should invest more cash.
Yeah.
Sounds clunky. But when you transform the structure, the word class, the vocabulary, and the level of detail, all at the same time, you create something new and sophisticated.
That's the goal right there. It sounds effortless, even though there's a lot going on under the surface.
And the more you practice using these tools one by one, the more intuitive it becomes to start combining them without even thinking about it.
Okay, I want to switch gears now and talk about how to apply these strategies to the specific sections of the IELTS test. Because as we said, it's not the same for every part. Let's start with reading. You called this the recognition game.
Yes. In the reading section, you are a detective. You're not writing the paraphrase, you are hunting for it. You have to find the suspect. The text is the crime scene, and the question is the description of the suspect you're looking for.
And the biggest mistake students make here is just scanning for keywords, right?
It's a fatal error. The question asks, what was the main cause of the civilization's decline? And the student just scans the entire passage for the word decline over and over.
And they never find it.
Of course not, because the text says something like, the society ultimately collapsed, or the population dwindled rapidly. You have to go into the test with a prediction mindset. When you read the question before you even look at the text, ask yourself, how else could they say decline?
So you're basically preloading your brain with potential synonyms before you even start reading.
Exactly. You're priming your brain to look for collapse, downfall, dwindled. And you also have to watch out for structural traps. The test writers love to reverse the cause and effect to trick you. The text might say, a sudden increase in tourism caused significant damage to the ancient ruins. Then the question might ask, the ancient ruins were damaged as a result of.
So if you're not paying attention to the grammar, you might just match the words damage and ruins, but completely miss what caused what.
And you get the answer wrong because you didn't notice they used the passive voice to flip the sentence around. It's a classic IELTS trick.
What about listening? That seems even more difficult because it's happening in real time. You can't pause the audio to think about it.
It's definitely high pressure.
Yeah.
But the strategy is the same. You have to predict. You get that little bit of prep time, those 30 seconds before the audio starts. Use every single one of them.
So if the question says the maximum number of participants is...
Don't just stare at the words. Think, okay, how could they say this? They might say, the course is capped at, or it's limited to, or we can take no more than.
So that when you hear the speaker say, we can take no more than 12 people, your brain immediately lights up.
Exactly. You were listening for the concept of a maximum number, not the specific words. There's a brilliant example in the notes about a library renovation.
Oh, yeah, this one's tricky.
The audio says, the main library will be closed for refurbishment from the 15th to the 30th of June. But the question on the paper says, the library will be unavailable for approximately weeks.
That's a paraphrase that involves math.
It's a multi-step process. First, you have to connect closed with unavailable. Then you have to calculate that the 15th to the 30th is about half a month, which is 2 weeks. You have to do the synonym swap and the calculation in a split second.
Which is why that prediction time is so critical. If you're expecting to hear a length of time, you'll be listening for dates you can convert.
You got it. You aren't listening for the words 2 weeks. You're listening for the data that means 2 weeks.
Okay, now for the big one, writing, active production. Let's talk about task 1 first, with the charts and graphs, the introduction.
The absolute golden rule of task 1 is never, ever copy the prompt. If the prompt says the chart below shows the percentage of households with internet access, and your first sentence is the chart below shows the percentage of households with internet access.
You've just wasted your opening sentence. The examiner looks at that and thinks, okay, 0 points for vocabulary so far.
It's a huge missed opportunity to make a good first impression. Shows can become illustrates or depicts. Percentage can become proportion. Households can become families.
So the provided chart illustrates the proportion of families with access to the internet.
Perfect. It immediately sets a sophisticated tone. It tells the examiner, I am in control of this language. And then, throughout the body of your answer, you have to vary your trend language. Don't just say increased 5 times.
Use rows, saw growth, there was an upward trend, climbed.
Right. Show them your whole toolbox, not just one hammer.
And what about for task 2, the essay? You often have to talk about the main topic several times. You can't just keep saying the government over and over again.
That's where I teach students to use the mental bucket technique. Before you even start writing, just take a second and create a mental list, or even scribble it on your planning paper for the key nouns in the prompt.
So if the topic is about government spending,
your bucket for government might include the state, authorities, policymakers, the administration. Now, as you write your essay, you just pull a different word from the bucket each time you need it.
It keeps the writing from feeling flat and robotic.
And it makes you faster, because you're not pausing every 2 sentences trying to think of a new word. You've already done the work up front.
Finally, let's talk speaking. I really like the advice in our notes here, because it actually frames self-correction as a positive thing. I think most students feel like if they have to correct themselves, they've made a mistake.
It's the complete opposite. Native speakers correct themselves constantly. It's a sign of fluency. It shows that you're actively monitoring your own language output, which is a very high-level skill.
So if you say something like, I think social media is very bad for people, or rather, I think the way we use it can be problematic. That, or rather, is actually a good thing.
It's a fantastic thing. It shows nuance. It shows you're refining your thoughts in real time, just like in a real conversation.
What's another good strategy for speaking?
Clarify and expand. If the examiner asks, do you enjoy reading? Don't just say, yes, I enjoy reading. That's a dead end. Paraphrase the concept of enjoying reading by explaining why you enjoy it.
So you can say, oh, absolutely. For me, it's the best way to relax. I love getting lost in a good story and just forgetting about everything else for a while.
Exactly. You've answered the question fully and shown a much wider range of vocabulary and grammar, all by explaining the feeling behind your answer. You're paraphrasing the idea of liking something.
We've covered a lot of what to do, but I think it's just as important to cover what not to do. Let's talk about the common pitfalls. We've mentioned the robotic candidate, but let's look at the problem of over-paraphrasing.
This is when you try so hard that your writing becomes completely ridiculous. The test I always tell my students to use is the native speaker test. Before you write down a fancy phrase, ask yourself, would a normal person actually say this in a conversation?
So if the original is, many people like playing video games, you shouldn't change it to, a plethora of individuals derive gratification from engaging with digital interactive entertainment.
Please, no. If the answer to the native speaker test is no, they would sound like a poorly written robot, then just don't write it. Clarity is always more important than complexity.
Okay, pitfall number 2, false synonyms. We talked about the flavor of words like slim versus skinny, but there are grammatical traps here too, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. A classic one is advice versus suggestion. They seem similar, but advice is an uncountable noun, and suggestion is countable.
So you can have a suggestion, but you can't have an advice. You have to say a piece of advice.
Exactly. And if you just swap them without changing the grammar around them, your sentence will be incorrect. Another big one is the meaning mismatch, like with supervision versus surveillance.
That's a great example.
Saying young children require constant supervision means you're watching them to keep them safe. It's good parenting. Saying young children require constant surveillance sounds like you're a spy agency monitoring them with hidden cameras.
Right. Very different connotations. One is about care, the other is about suspicion.
And you do not want to accidentally mix those up in your essay.
Okay, pitfall 3. Unnecessary technical paraphrasing. We touched on this with photosynthesis.
The rule is simple. Don't do it. If a scientific or technical term exists, use that term. You don't get extra points for inventing a long, clumsy description of it. In fact, you'll probably lose points for being unclear.
And the last big pitfall, losing precision.
This happens when you move up the ladder of abstraction and you go too far. The original text might say, the study involved 500 participants between the ages of 18 and 25. A bad paraphrase would be, many young people took part in the study.
You've lost all the specific data. Many could be anything. Young is too vague.
Right. A good paraphrase preserves that precision. You could say 500 individuals in the 18 to 25 age bracket participated in the research. You've changed the words and the structure, but you've kept the essential data intact.
That's a really key distinction. Okay, we're heading into the final stretch. I want to briefly touch on the advanced techniques. This is for the people out there who are really pushing for those top scores, a band 8 or 9. What does it mean to go beyond the sentence?
This is where you start paraphrasing the logic of the argument, not just the words. It's about things like discourse markers. So instead of using a simple connector like therefore every time, you can use a whole phrase that means the same thing. Like given the severity of this problem, or this finding logically leads to the conclusion that you're paraphrasing the cause and effect relationship itself.
And what about hedging? I hear that term a lot in academic writing.
Hedging is all about softening your claims and avoiding absolute statements. It's the language of caution, and it makes you sound much more academic. So instead of writing, social media causes depression, which is a very strong and probably unprovable claim,
You would hedge it.
you'd write, social media may contribute to symptoms of depression. Or, some studies suggest a link between social media use and depression. It shows that you understand that the world is complex and you're not oversimplifying things.
It protects you from being factually wrong.
And in academic terms, that caution is a sign of sophistication.
Okay, so we have all the theory, all the techniques, but none of this matters without practice. We need an action plan. How can our listeners practice this skill without just falling back into the trap of memorizing lists?
I've got 4 exercises that are designed to completely retrain your brain. First one is exercise 1, the daily challenge. Every day, just take one sentence. It can be from a news headline, a book, anything. Write it down, and then force yourself to rewrite it in 5 different ways, using the 5 different techniques we've discussed.
Just one sentence a day.
That's it. It takes 5 minutes, but it's like going to the gym for your brain. It builds that muscle of flexibility.
I love that. Okay, what's next?
Exercise 2, reverse engineering. Get your IELTS practice tests out. Go to the reading section. Find a question and its answer in the text. Write the sentence from the text and the sentence from the question side by side. See how the examiner paraphrased it? You're basically reverse engineering the test itself.
So you start to see the patterns they use.
You learn to think like the test maker.
Brilliant. What's number 3?
Exercise 3. Rewrite. This is my favorite. Write a paragraph, maybe the introduction to an essay. Then put it away for 24 hours. Don't look at it. The next day, try to rewrite that same paragraph from memory.
Without looking at the original.
Without looking. Then, compare the two versions. You will see that you have naturally paraphrased yourself because your brain remembers the ideas, not the exact sequence of words. It proves that you can rely on meaning transfer.
That's a fantastic exercise. And the last one.
Exercise 4. Synonym networks, not lists. Throw away your vocabulary lists. Instead, make mind maps. Put a core word like important in the center. Then draw branches off it. One branch for crucial, and next to it, write a little note. Use for emergencies, very urgent. Another branch for significant with a note. Use for data, statistics.
So you're learning the word and its context, its flavor at the same time.
Exactly. You're not just collecting dead words on a list. You're building a living network of meaning in your brain.
This has been an incredibly thorough deep dive. I feel like we've taken this really big, scary topic and broken it down into something that's, well, manageable, maybe even a little bit fun.
It should be fun. Language is a creative tool. Paraphrasing is just about finding new ways to build things with the same set of blocks.
And the big takeaway here is that this isn't just an IELTS skill, is it?
Not at all. This is a fundamental life skill. When you're at university and you need to summarize a professor's lecture, when you're in a business meeting and you need to explain a complex idea to a client, even when you're just trying to clear up a misunderstanding with a friend.
You're paraphrasing.
You're taking an idea and reshaping it so that another person can understand you. It's about connection. At its heart, it's about owning the language. When you can paraphrase well, you're no longer just a user of English, you're a creator.
A creator. I love that. That's a really powerful way to end. So for everyone listening, start small, try that daily challenge, take the description of this deep dive and try to paraphrase it.
Excellent idea.
Thank you so much for breaking all of this down for us. This has been hugely enlightening.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, if you found this deep dive helpful and you want more insights like this, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It genuinely helps us to keep making this content for you. Until next time, keep practicing and keep paraphrasing.